Boys, welcome back to another Broadcasters YouTube video. I don't know how, but it's the last week of the regular season for fantasy, and these are the top 24 running backs for week 14. And boys, before we get into the video, check out our absolutely free group chat on our chalkboard. On the chalkboard, we have our full weekly rankings. This video is only top 24 RBs. We got 36 RBs, 48 wide receivers, 20 tight ends, 20 QBs, a bunch of free rankings. Check it out. First link in the description. First running back up, pretty easy choice. It's Austin Eckler. He's just been the clear RB1 for fantasy. PPR monster, and it's a pretty good matchup against the Dolphins. At number 2, our RB2 is Derrick Henry. He was disappointed last week, but they did get blown up by the Eagles this week. He versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Derrick Henry always kills his divisional opponents. He always destroys Jacksonville. He's a great start this week. At running back number 3, we got Christian McCaffrey. Yes, the matchup is awful against the Buccaneers, but with Brock Purdy starting last week, he had 10 targets out of some great upside. And the first player in the next tier, we got Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has been balling out lately. 48 points 2 weeks ago, around 20 points last week, has been great, but this week does have a bit of a tough matchup. The Rams are quite good against RBs. Again, Cam Akers did pretty good against them last week, so this is why Josh Jacobs is still a top 5 RB for us. He's just not in that elite tier. Next up, Joe Mixon has missed, I believe, the last 2 games with the concussion. We're expecting he is back this week, and it's a great matchup against the Browns, who are, I believe, 31st, so second worst in the league against running backs. Again, we're normally not the biggest Mixon fans. We still like him, but with the matchup, he has to be top 5 for us. And our RB6 on the week, we got Saquon Barkley. Saquon, he's been pretty consistent all year. He's had a couple down games, couple up games. This time against the Eagles. The Eagles are a pretty good defense overall, but against the run, they are struggling a little bit. I think they are bottom half for sure. Last week, though, they were pretty good against Derrick Henry. Saquon, an elite talent. You still have to start him. Next up, Ramondre Stevenson, and another pretty solid matchup against the Cardinals. Ramondre has been getting absolutely force-fed targets. He's almost in the same tier as, say, CMC, Eckler. Obviously not as good, but just PPR-wise, the amount of targets he gets is amazing for his upside. And the first player in the next tier, we got Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook had a terrible matchup span for a little bit. He was versing top defenses constantly. This week, he goes against the Lions. The Lions actually have been pretty good recently. When Dalvin Cook versed him early in the year, only 13 points, but he did get injured in that game. If he was fully healthy, he would have been great. He was very close to scoring a touchdown. Did great against them last time for the time he played, but Detroit has gotten tougher. Next up, Nick Chubb. Probably one of the most disappointing performances last week. Under 10 points in what should have been a blow-up game against the Texans. I believe he had 0 catches. He had 1 target, but no catches. It was around 80 rushing yards. Pretty horrible day for fantasy. And Nick Chubb, the matchup is much tougher against the Bengals. But still, when you have that much touchdown upside, you have to be a top 12 RB. Next up at RB10, we got Travis Etienne. The past 3 weeks, he has been pretty disappointing. Last week, not amazing. The week before, did get injured. And then the week before that, again, not amazing. Under 15 points in all those games. And the matchup is pretty tough against the Titans. The one good thing, though, he's looking like a clear workhorse back. He's playing easily over 80%. He's probably in top 5 last week for how many snaps he played. The Jaguars want to use this guy, and they're keeping him on the field basically the whole game. Another player that is a pure bell cow for their team right now, James Conner. The only reason we have him this low is the matchup is awful against the Patriots. They are for sure top 3, might even be number 2 right now against running backs. They have been outstanding. Still love Connor's upside because of being a bell cow, but just hate the matchup. And at RB12, we didn't know if we'd see this guy back in the top 12 all season, but it's DeAndre Swift. Last week, finally took over this backfield, had more snaps than Jamal Williams, had more points, had more carries. He's looking like the RB1 in Detroit. Very encouraging for all the Swift owners. They've been pained for so long with Swift, and I think he finally might be back. He has to be started for the rest of the way with his workload. And at running back, 13 and 14, just going to group them together. We got Zeke and Tony Pollard, 2 super high-end RB2s. The reason we have Zeke higher is he had, I believe, more touches overall, and he played more snaps. Tony Pollard just has more explosive plays. So, like them both a ton, and their matchup is phenomenal against the Texans. Texans are dead last against running backs. Love both Zeke and Pollard this week. And next up at RB15, we got Dante Foreman. He's been up and down. Some games is really good, gets a lot of carries. Some games gets zoned out of the game. This time against the Seahawks, it's a pretty good matchup. They have been pretty bad against RBs. He's a solid start. And next up, another player that has been pretty inconsistent, Miles Sanders. Don't love the upside here against the Giants. They've been pretty good against the run. And Miles Sanders, like I just said, pretty inconsistent. Last week, around 11, 12 points. Week before, over 30 points. 2 weeks before that, both under 6 points. Again, don't love the upside, but when the Eagles run this much, you have to start him at least as an RB2 or flex play. And next up, our RB17, we have Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco last week was pretty solid, found the end zone. This week, though, a pretty tough matchup. Denver is pretty good, just all around on defense, pretty good against RBs, but Pacheco taking over this backfield, he for sure can be started in fantasy. And next up, Kenneth Walker. Kind of just felt we had to throw him on here. Don't think he's going to play. Has a messed up foot right now. And if he does play, expect him to be limited. Again, don't really expect him to play, just had to throw him on the list. At RB19, we have Najee Harris. Najee, a couple weeks ago with Jalen Warren out, was the clear bell cow. But last week, Benny Snell got some carries. Jalen Warren came back, took some snaps. He's kind of not in a 3 RB committee. He's still going to play around 60% of snaps, but he's not going to be that 80% of snaps player. He has less of a workload and for sure has less upside. And next up, another grouping. We're just going to group together Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White. Have Leonard Fournette higher because he played more snaps. Rachaad White, I think they had the same amount of catches. Rachaad White had one more target. So right now, looks like a tiny bit more PPR upside. Obviously, White had the game-winning touchdown catch. But again, Leonard Fournette playing a bit more snaps, have him higher. And again, both of them are ranked pretty low because the matchup is super tough against the Niners, who might have the best defense in football. And our first player in this last tier, we have Latavius Murray. The main downside to him is just how bad this Broncos offense is. He's leading the backfield right now, over 50, maybe even over 60% of snaps. He's getting some targets, getting some carries, but there's just no touchdown upside for him. This Broncos offense, I think, is last in scoring. If not last, they're for sure bottom 5. They're just not getting TD opportunities. Also, other RBs like Mike Boone and even Marlon Mack are taking a bit of the snaps. There's not like a clear workhorse. He is a low-end RB2. Next up, we got Dameon Pierce. It's been a roller coaster with him lately. 2 weeks ago, we told you to bench him, put up under 5 points. Last week, told you to start him. Wasn't amazing, put around 11 or 12 points. This week, another probable sit candidate against the Cowboys, who I believe are number 6 against running backs right now. They have been not messing around on defense. Their defense has been phenomenal, and when the Texans get blown out, Dameon Pierce doesn't seem to be doing too good recently. And our last player of the video, we have Cam Akers. I didn't know if I'd see Cam Akers on this video again, but he's taken over this backfield once again. I think it was 72% of snaps. He's playing more than Kyren Williams. Got the 2 touchdowns against Seattle, 19 fantasy points. I think if you're really desperate, you could consider starting Cam Akers. And boys, thank you again so much for watching the video. Again, check out the Chalkboard, completely free group chat app with all of our extra rankings. Thanks again for watching. See you guys next time.